Good afternoon. The beginning of the 21st century saw numerous television productions about the life of Julius Caesar, each one more lavish in its production values and dedicated to authentic period detail than the one that had preceded it. TNT's Julius Caesar in 2003, for instance, was richly detailed, perhaps best known for having Richard Harris in one of his final roles as Sulla. In 2005, ABC brought out Empire, focused more on the rise of Octavian, but shamelessly imitative of Ridley Scott's Gladiator. And the same year, of course, saw the granddaddy of them all, BBC HBO's Rome, with its deluxe Cinecittà settings and superb performances, especially that of Ciarán Hinds as Julius Caesar himself. I remember a few years ago talking about the look of these big budget productions with Jonathan Stamp, the historical advisor to HBO, and writing down his reply. The Romans, whether they're baddies or the goodies, always play well, he said. They run the gamut from God to Mem and everything in between. Plus, they're fucking sexy as hell. The crimson, the togas, the helmet, the buff. The two films that I'd like to consider today, Paolo and Vittorio Taviani's Cesare deve morire, Caesar Must Die, and Paul Schulman's A String Caesar or Jail Caesar, both released in 2012, designedly steer clear of such sumptuousness and splendor of presentation, but coming out early in the decade that followed Julius Caesar, Empire, and HBO's Rome, must necessarily be seen in their collective shadow. Most notably, the films of my talk today are each set in a prison context. In their far more squalid settings, Caesar Must Die and Jail Caesar offer images of the rise and fall of Julius Caesar, characterized by a harsh brutality that strips away ancient Rome's glamorous sex appeal. While not as well known as some of their contemporaries, the Taviani brothers occupied a significant place in the world of Italian filmmaking until the death of Vittorio in 2018. Having made numerous award-winning films like Chaos, Padre Padrone, and perhaps most famously, The Night of the Shooting Stars. One of their last productions, Caesar Must Die, opens classically enough in medias res, as we see in full color the final scene of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Brutus's suicide following the loss at Philippi, and Mark Antony's "This was the noblest Roman of them all" speech. Thunderous applause ensues from the audience, and then, as we see the actors one by one led back to their to be locked away in their cells, we realize the play has been set in one of Rome's highest security prisons, Rebibbia, only a few miles away from the Forum, as well as from Cinecittà itself. As we digest this suggestive fact and consider the commentary this modern Roman context is making upon the ancient Roman proceedings, the film goes back to the beginning, and in doing so changes from color to a stylish black and white. The prisoners are gathered in a common room where the warden introduces them to Fabio Cavalli, who is interested in staging a production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar with the inmates and the parts. The structure of the drama will follow closely Shakespeare. It must be noted, although the language is far more colloquial, with each actor employing his own regional accent and idiom. We then move to auditions, and we see each of the principals of the drama trying out for their parts. Significantly, in learning of each of the prisoners' names, we are also informed of their crimes. These are hardened criminals, as Taviani's want us to know, and our interest in the performances in the Shakespearean tragedy of ancient Rome is based on the very fact that crime and murder are a way of life not unknown to them. In an essay for the New York Times that came out about the time these films were released, the founder of Prison Performing Arts, Agnes Wilcox, noted how drama-based rehabilitation programs help inmates develop sympathy. Many men and women are in prison because they have limited problem-solving skills, she wrote. In Caesar Must Die, we see such a moment when Strianos Brutus finds himself unable to deliver his lines, translated from Shakespeare into Neapolitan and then back into subtitled English, which read, "If I could remove the spirit of the tyrant from him without tearing up in his chest." The phrase reminds Striano of an encounter he had years before with a man who was killed under unclear circumstances. And be troubled, he cannot go on. He's got the character of Brutus inside him, says one of Striano's fellow convicts. And that identification of the actor with the part he plays can be seen all the more clearly in the somewhat longish clip I'm about to show, featuring Giovanni Arcuri as Caesar, who occupies the role rather fully. There's a picture of him now in his toga, the only nod to ancient costuming in the film, and worn with genuine auctoritas by the inmate. In the scene that we're about to see, we see Arcuri with Decius Brutus, played by Juan Dario Bonetti. As you will recall from the tragedy, Calpurnia had conveyed to her husband a dream of a bleeding statue and convinced her husband not to go to the Senate. It is Decius's task to reverse this decision by appealing to the dictator's vanity. We'll stop that share for just a second, and now come back to reshare. And here is the clip.
Facciamo le mani, e allora siete pronti per la passeggiata al Senato?
E bravo Decio, sei arrivato al momento giusto. Fammi questa ambasciata ai molto venerandi senatori. Cesare oggi diserta la seduta.
In che siete voi?
Passami da quest'altro vecchio. Ma quando mai? Cesare non si nasconde dietro una bugia. Non è che non posso andare. Diciamo che non mi va. Digli proprio così. Cesare non c'ha genio di venire.
Potentissimo Cesare. Allora, avessi inventato un motivo. Perché se no, i senatori avessero pigliato il culo a me.
Un motivo. È la parola mia, e quanto basta. Decio. Siccome ti voglio bene, ti voglio rivelare un segreto. Stanotte mia moglie ha fatto un sogno. Sopra una statua mia si sono aperte 100 ferite, 100 bocche da cui zampillava sangue. E in ginocchio mi ha scongiurato di non uscire di casa. E io a casa resto.
Cesare. Ma questo è un sogno buono e premonisce il contrario. Roma è una sangue sua, che se nutre lo sangue tuo e bevendo, diventa sempre più forte, più grande.
Questa è la spiegazione giusta, moglie mia.
E mo dovete sentire un'altra novità, buona per voi, fresca stamattina. Il Senato ha messo a voto un decreto per assegnare al grande Cesare una corona. Vedete che se voi mancate, i senatori potrebbero cambiare idea. La seduta è rinviata, in attesa. La moglie del grande Cesare faccia un sogno buono. Avete scusato per la mia parlata sincera, una parlata d'amico,
Parlata d'amico, da falsone, da leccaculo, da faccia di bronzo. È proprio bravo lui a recitare l'intrigante.
Ma che cazzo dici? Stai sbagliando battuta.
Come sei bravo. Con questa faccetta ti viene proprio bene.
Questo non c'è sul copione. Cesare non dice così.
Lo direbbe se ti conoscesse. Ma adesso non sto più recitando, Juan.
Ma che succede? Fatti loro.
Ti sto dicendo quello che c'avevo sul cuore da anni. Io ti conosco, mi hai sempre parlato alle spalle. Come ti conoscono loro?
Sì, loro. Ma loro non sanno che io casi tu.
Perché che sai? Che sai? Dillo, che sai?
Dall'orecchio buono, te lo direbbe Decio. Ma io te lo faccio.
Vattene via, non ti avvicinare. Il morso del serpente è velenoso.
Serpente io, ridillo.
E che fai?
Già, ma che fai? Fanno finire, se no sono tutto rovinato. Ci fanno chiudere in baracca.
So there's a lot to unpack in that scene, which is shot in the prison library where Curie has been reading about Caesar and is immersing himself in the role so completely, in fact, that when Bonetti's Decius comes to lead him to his death, his eventual death by Silver-tongue's flattery, Curie cannot say the lines, instead breaking character as he imagined Caesar himself would or should have. The fight that nearly breaks out between Curie and Bonetti is, to my mind, a symbol of the strain between these conflicting images of Caesar, a sense of strain emphasized all the more by the nature of the scene itself. At first glance, evidently a backstage moment of rehearsal, but clear from the framing of the shots that it's a fully staged performance. Perhaps it's a restaging of a genuine scuffle in rehearsal. In any event, it's unclear what's appearance and what's reality. And there is furthermore a serious criticism being leveled by the filmmakers and the convicted criminal against Shakespeare's portrait of Caesar, against Plutarch's portrait of Caesar, upon which it's based, and perhaps of Caesar himself. How could so great a man be taken in by such explicit sycophancy? If this is what Caesar was like, then this is not what Caesar should have been like. I want to now go on to talk about, I'm going to pause this for a second. Sorry for that little bit of awkwardness. Paul Schoolman's Jail Caesar is likewise set in a series of maximum security prisons, most notably Pollsmoor in Cape Town, where Nelson Mandela spent the last 6 years of his incarceration, a place he described as having a primitive heart. Unlike the Taviani brothers movie, Schoolman deals not with the fall of Caesar, but specifically with his early years and his rise to power. In fact, power is a central theme throughout, and negotiations over power dynamics are a constant preoccupation. This place is ruled by gangs, says the security chief at Pollsmoor. There are invisible lines across the floor, and if somebody crosses over one of those lines, they're dead. That these fatal boundaries could be relaxed during filming is a testament to Schoolman's vision for the project, which also brought in a number of professional performers to act alongside the inmates, including Warren Adler as Caesar, Star Trek's Alice Krieg, Schoolman's wife, in a number of roles, and Sir Derek Jacobi, who gives a forceful performance as Sulla. Indeed, the years of ferocious civil war between Marius and Sulla and the bloody purges that follow map easily onto the culture of these prisons. But this idea of invisible lines is more than just a metaphor for the project. The film is called Jail Caesar, a title so clever that I am mad at myself for not already thinking it, but maybe I can beat it at the end. This is a challenge. I'll let Dan Curley decide whether or not I meet it. The real name of the film is String Caesar, and it's predicated on the idea of string theory, the concept of theoretical physics that explains all force and particles as actually being a series of tiny vibrating strings radiating through space and time and connecting an infinite number of parallel universes in conflicting realities. It is a challenging idea, I will grant you. But one of the inmates explains the concept to Schoolman in a poem of his own creation, which I'll quote. In the half-sleeping time up till midnight and the half-waking hours before dawn, my spirit first wins and then loses the freedom with which I was born. As I lie in my cell, barred and bolted, in the glare of that bright prison light, my soul finds release as a nomad and wanders from me in the night. The inmate then turns to the director and says with penetrating intensity, I can walk through walls. The argument of String Caesar, insofar as I can unravel it, is that the violent world of ancient Rome during the civil wars is not simply being represented by these lifers in some of the world's fiercest prisons, but that they are all connected by the same string winding back and forth between the Roman past and the present day. If all this sounds confusing, and I assure you that it is, but the sense of knotted up timelines and narrative discontinuities gives the film a strong sense of urgency. I'll note that, you have a number of sort of split screens throughout the film trying to illustrate this idea of conflicting realities. The power dynamics that Adler's young Caesar must negotiate are not in any way straightforward, and the stakes could not be higher in a place where every encounter can be seen is in fact a matter of life or death. In the clip that I am about to show, we see Jacobi as Sulla the dictator, dispatching his enemies with ruthless efficiency. Kill who you want to kill, he tells his underlings. Rape who you want to rape. Burn whatever you like. Various people, portrayed by some of the women prisoners, are coming to Sulla to plead for the young Caesar's life, with suggestions that the prison context seems well suited to elicit, in the midst of all of which Caesar is able to negotiate, is able to seize the opportunity in order to. Okay, here's the clip.
He's a slender youth who wears his hair curled and long, his toga loose.
His history heavy.
His young Julius Caesar, high priest to Jupiter.
We ask you of his future.
Young Julius Caesar, nephew to Marius, husband to Cornelia, daughter of Cinna. He's still alive, and you ask me of his future.
Slender youth
Who wears his hair curled and his toga loose.
and his history most effeminate.
Most effeminate. Most effeminate.
Slender, curled, effeminate. Why should a young boy suffer for his family? The gods must be to blame for a marriage. What a soft young priest. Go, tell loose-toed Caesar that we think highly of him and his future. Tell him to divorce his wife and to take one of our very special children.
Your future is safe. Your life secure. Something's kindly towards you. So just give us a word. Give us a word. And your life will blossom like a fig tree in summer. Give us a word. Give us a word. Give us a word.
Something's kindly towards us all.
Crawling with the figures of men. The trees will walk behind you. The Cornelia will dominate this dry, parched land. The Cornelia will catch you. They will hunt you down like a baby fox. They will tear you like a duckling. They will smell you out from your hiding place and send you running. Run, little Caesar. Hide, little Caesar. Run, little Caesar. Follow great Marius's footsteps.
Run, little Caesar, run. There's a lot to be said about this adrenaline-fueled scene, but let me note that what you see here gives you a good sense of the anxious aesthetic of Jules Caesar. Here we have a pervasive sense of panic that the camera work seeks to emphasize, capturing fairly well, to my mind, how life under Sulla's reign of terror must have felt, a consuming worry about running afoul of the bloodthirsty tyrant. In addition, in Schoolman's film, we are almost never unaware of the prison's harsh fluorescent lighting and the sense of surveillance that it imparts. Everyone's lives are under observation, but even so, there are invisible lines of gang loyalties within which the prisoners must live their lives. Their deeper inner lives are likewise lived beyond the visual as they try to slip the physical and temporal confines of the imprisoned state in orange jumpsuits in ways String Caesar can only give us a sense of rather than the sight of. There are other astounding passages in this film that are worth discussing, but in the interest of time, let me move on to my conclusion, such as it is. There's little doubt that Jonathan Stamp is right when he says that the Romans are often portrayed as fucking sexy as hell. From the time of Cabiria in 1914, he also told me the Romans have always put bums on seats, and Caesar in particular, as cinematic hero, has always had a tantalizing big screen quality about him. The first decade of the 21st century seemed especially interested in this vision of Roman grandeur, and there are a few of us at this conference who are unaware of how compelling that vision has been in popular culture. To my mind, the two films that I've been looking at here must be considered in connection with those productions, with their big budgets, their handsome sets, and their elaborate publicity rollouts. The penitentiary settings alone challenge our sense of overfamiliarity with the themes and characters of Caesar's story. In its mostly shades of gray cinematography, Caesar Must Die has a studied film noir quality about it, one that centers the prisoners as performers and gives their interactions with Caesar in the classical past an authority based on their particular experiences as criminals and, of course, their common humanity. With its embrace of string theory and a corresponding visual disjointedness, Jill Caesar looks to unsettle its audience still further. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with the bones, Shakespeare's Mark Antony famously intoned in his eulogy, offering us a sharp dualism of Caesar, a love him or hate him choice. In the film of the Taviani brothers and Paul Schoolman, we are offered a far more complicated portrait of Caesar. Caesar in the lockup, Caesar wearing a prison jumpsuit, leading us to wonder if this orange Julius should be the new black and white. Thank you very much.